major manufacturers at all. Who knows?
Oh, e-scooters. Where is Johnny? Should we
No, I need e-scooters for.
I'm
for
here.
the
I'm
eight
here.
There he is.
Oh,
Hello.
there he is.
Right, shall we make a start?
Yes, exciting.
Cool, the chat box is a bit lively already this morning.
I know.
Got some catching up to do. Oh, hang on 1 second. Just see what's going on here. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 12th instalment of the EV Cafe webinar series. Firstly, I just want to thank those of you joining us today, as I appreciate there is another webinar taking place at the very same time. But
Is there?
Not as important.
Can't imagine it's very good.
Yeah, yes. So could I just ask that Alec, Michael and Matthew, if you could just turn your screens off just for a moment and then come back on.
Bye.
See you later, Paul.
Miss you already.
Yeah, actually, I want to tell you about some news that we have planned for the future of the EV Cafe. So as I mentioned on my LinkedIn post, we have the very first live stream that we're hoping to take place on the 26th of August. But where are we going to have the live stream? I'm going to let you guys decide. I'm going to put a poll up and answers will be given at the end of the show. So exciting stuff for us on the 26th of August, our first ever live stream, where you'll see all of us together for the very first time, actually together, not on the screen.
Really? like next to each other and stuff.
Oh.
Well, with PPE when you're around, John.
Yeah.
We socially distance from you, John, anyway. So
You need to bring your face mask, please.
Oh, and I've got one somewhere. I'll go get it in a second.
not your detox face mask either. So we really hope you enjoyed today, as we have yet again another jam-packed agenda this afternoon with 4 very special guests joining us, the panelists and you, the audience. And this time, it's not just about electric cars and vans. So they are coming on to talk to us about what they are doing with different forms of transport from today, tomorrow, and beyond. One of which is actually a very special, important guest, because he is my boss. That's Mr. Mark Dickens, who will give us a manufacturer's perspective on the future of our vehicles, how we will use them, and what cities could look like. And so joining him is Michael Eaglen. He's the co-founder and CEO of EV Maritime, a technology company in New Zealand, and he comes live from New Zealand, focused on zero-emission inshore maritime application. And as I say, he's from New Zealand, and it's 11 p.m. from where he is presenting. So he is in our EV pub with, I'm sure, a glass of wine to hand. So as it's 11 o'clock somewhere, that might give me a good enough excuse to go grab a bottle myself. Then we have Adam Barmby from EAV. Adam is an entrepreneur with a passion for simplistic transport futures in our cities. I'm very excited to hear what EAV can do for our cities with what he has to offer. And then finally, we have, later on in the afternoon, we have Alec Sharp, who specialises in 2-wheel electric mobility, and I believe supplies to commercial clients, carries out mobile servicing and demonstrations off-road as well. I just want to mention that if you wasn't as sad as me or not as early bird as me this morning at 6 a.m, and you didn't see the live reveal of the next EV crossover from Nissan called Ariya, then it is certainly worth catching up on a recording on YouTube. You might say, why am I mentioning this? Well, Nissan is our alliance partner, as you all know, and the platform of this vehicle is called the CMF EV, which is a cross-platform for the alliance, and therefore will give you a glimpse at what Renault could also offer in the near future too. So that's it. So that's 4 special guests. As we always have, they're all fighting the good fight of zero emission sustainable transport, and they're all here to tell us, the panel and the audience, what they are doing today and tomorrow. So who are the panel? The usual suspects. Would you like to introduce yourselves? And whilst you do that, maybe could the audience also introduce themselves using the chat box, as we always want to hear from you. So as always, Sarah, would you like to start and say hello to the EV cafes?
With pleasure. I've been very excited about this session. I do believe the future is now, and it's good to bring everyone together and look at these new concepts that we're looking ahead for. But I'd like to remind us all that if you cast your mind back only a few years ago, we may have thought that things like leather seats and Wi-Fi on buses was a future concept, and yet the future is now. That's now happening as standard. So I'm very excited to see what's being revealed from our guests, and I suspect that in a few years' time it'll be very, very old news, which is a good thing to be. So my name's Sarah Sloman. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a zero emission mobility lead here in the UK, and it's a privilege and pleasure every single time to come on the EV Cafe. So thank you.
So Paul, you're up next.
I always have to follow the eloquent and expertly talented Sarah Sloman and give my sort of introduction. So anyway, welcome to the back of a van. This is not a virtual one this time. It is real.
Not a green screen.
There you go.
No,
Sorry?
real.
Not
It's
a green
real.
screen.
No, not a green screen. It absolutely is. Yeah, it's yeah.
Dedicated to the cause.
Yeah, absolutely. In my back garden, just close enough to the Wi-Fi. So with 4.1 million vans on the road and disproportionately responsible for the amount of emissions in our inner cities, it is so important that we get more and more electric vans. And this is an electric van. I wouldn't have compromised in any way for this day. So getting more and more electric vans on the road as well as cars is absolutely my paramount plan and purpose. So these events of thinking about the future and what might the future hold, I'm always excited to hear about what the future is for vans, but all kinds of mobility is great. And I think back to the Wright brothers who thought about mobility, trying to get across in a little two-seater or one-seater plane, and now look where planes are. I think we can condense that transformational process into a much shorter space of time with the aid of the wonderful minds we have on today. Talking of minds, mental health. Don't ever forget it. A lot of people are beginning to come out about how they are feeling as a result of lockdown and have been in extended periods of furlough and things like that. So please do be aware of everybody's mental health, encourage each other to talk and be open. Over to John.
Excellent as always, Paul. John, you're next, and Dean Hedges' dog.
Hello, darlings. Well, yes, me and Tucker. Now, this is Tucker, that way. Tucker is the latest star for the AA. I don't work for the AA, never have, other than a bit of consultancy work, but just love what they've done with marketing and with their EV proposition. If you don't know about it, Dean Hedges on the EV Cafe today. Check him out. Love, love, love Tucker. Get that advert watched. Anyway, low carbon vehicle expert, motoring journalist, Go Ultra Low ambassador, general know nothing, and timekeeper. So again, I bring my enormous clock. Let's hear it for the enormous clock.
Hey.
I thank you kindly. So today I'll be timekeeping. So for all the people who are presenting, they will get 5 minutes. At the end of the 5 minutes, there will be a sound. Now, did that come through?
Yes, it did. Please don't give them the satisfaction of using that.
Now then, I'm an evil man with my little comic whistle there. So anywhere near 5 minutes and you're off.
Brilliant.
Love it.
Thanks, John.
Catch you later.
Thank you, John. And those for you that don't know me by now, my name is Johnny Berry and I work in the Fleet Sales Department for Renault UK. I will be chairing the proceedings of the 12th instalment today, whilst John Curtis is the timekeeper, as he's already mentioned. So we will see Matthew, my northern version of me. He will be coming live from the mailroom to ask those all-important questions on your behalf to the panellists and special guests. Matthew, do you want to say hello to the lovely guests on the EV Cafe?
Hello!
Hello.
The northern version of you. Come on, son. I'm much better looking, you know that.
Job roles. Better haircut. I'll give you that.
Yeah, hi guys. As Johnny said, I'm here in the mail room. So if you've got any questions, down at the bottom, Q&A tab, stick them in there. And when we get breaks for questions, I will be asking them to the guests for you. Okay. See you in a bit, guys.
Thanks, Matt. So we will run today like this. We have the 4 special guests, each having 5 minutes to present, Although Mark Dickens will be on halfway, who will actually have 10 minutes, John. So just keep that in mind. Well, why? Well, not only because he is my boss, but there is a lot for him to share. And after each presentation, we'll have time for the questions. So make sure you keep the chat box and the Q&A tab lively, as we really want to ask them as many questions whilst we've got them online for 2 hours.
John, sorry to interject, Johnny. John, if you've ever seen Mark Dickens present, 5 minutes is about long enough for him to get his name out.
Oh, this could get interesting.
Yeah. So 10 minutes will be a challenge for Mr. Dickens. You will get to use your whistle.
We're telling 5 minutes, but secretly we got 10 minutes.
A pretty amazing job interview there.
As always, please ask the panelists, the presenters, to try and keep to their time, as we do have that tight time schedule today, a packed agenda. And obviously, we've got the presentation police, John Vorderman, aka John Curtis. I do not want to give him the satisfaction of sounding his little comical whistle. And a quick one before we kick things off. For those of you that are new to the cafe, and I just want to reiterate this again, it is very much about you lot as the participants than it is about us. So we are always wanting to hear from you. So feel free to talk to us through the chat box or amongst yourselves, or privately to the panel using this. If you, however, find this distracting during some of the talks or presentations, then feel free to close or ignore it. We do, however, have the chat box master back, Mr. Scott Eady, back from paternity. He will be active on there, monitoring, make sure it's good behaviour. But to be honest, I don't have to worry about that because we always have such a great bunch. So no worries there. So yeah, Q&A tab. If you've got any questions, and Matthew will ask them during his round. If you want to come off mute and talk to us, then please raise your virtual hand during the Q&A section. I'll take you off mute, and that way you can cover something, challenge us, or simply say hello to everybody else. Heckling is always allowed in the EV Cafe. And then last but not least, as for the panel and special guests joining us today, a gentle reminder, please raise your hand on camera like so if you want to talk. This is simply just to avoid crossing over each other. So that's enough from me. So let's kick things off with our very first special guest of today. As you can see, Mr. Adam Barmby. Would you like to go ahead and share your screen, Adam?
Yes, thank you very much.
Timekeeper.
Yeah, don't worry, I'm on it. I'm on it.
Just hold your horses, Mr. Curtis. Just give you a chance to get ready.
Yeah. Right, you ready, Adam?
Minutes.
Yeah, I'm good to go.
Right, 3, 2, 1, go.
Hi, so yeah, I'm Adam Barmby. I'm the founder and CEO of Electric Assisted Vehicles Limited, aka EAV. We're a new generation vehicle design, engineering and manufacturing company based in the heart of the UK. We're rapidly growing into the emerging and growing zero emissions vehicle industry. We want to make transport as non-hypocritical and as obviously environmentally friendly as possible, with no loss of efficiency or capability to businesses. EVE was born focusing on the largest potential market within commercial logistics, the first last mile sector. The most important defining factor for us is that we've engineered down from a van, not up from a bike, and we operate and form an OEM automotive thinking e-cargo bike based company. Ultimately, we're a disruptor. We're evolving the relationship people have with vehicles and transport in general. The future for us is intelligent and lightweight methods of transport that deliver a sense of purpose and have a real place in urban populations without really offending anyone. So, just skip the page. So we've been developing our company now for 2 years. Our team and facility and capabilities is ideally suited to the task at hand, and we've been capable of rapidly growing into a market that we believe with already the best e-cargo bike on the market, emphasising our key strengths in safety, manoeuvrability, weight handling, modularity, most importantly to the large blue chips of the world at least, the sort of visual curb appeal, and really trying to bridge that gap between a van and a bike. We've been through several design iterations now. You can see the sort of evolution on your page there now. And we've arrived at our next generation platform that will allow us the ability to really expand rapidly, both from a manufacturing standpoint and also with the ultimate modular product. Where we've sort of come from in the past, we partnered up with the largest UK parcel company, DPD. They're our first customer. We actually used them as a technical partner and used a design brief to create the vehicle with them. And we've really listened to all of our customers that have trialed our vehicle both in the UK, Europe, Scandinavia, and we've rather than going straight to market and going right into production, we've really redeveloped the product and tried to capture every single essence of what each customer is actually looking for. So, present day, this is our new vehicle we're launching. It's effectively a chassis cab vehicle, but we've sort of hang on a minute. The next generation vehicle, starting to see in towns and cities across the UK, Europe, and Scandinavia. You know, I want to be reasonably bold in my statement here. This will replace small vans within the urban areas where average speeds can almost be guaranteed from like a routing optimization point of view, and where the true cost of the ownership of the vehicle can be de-risked to the customer. Over an average of 5 years, we've calculated that owning our vehicle within the city centre, this is without calculating any grants or savings in not having to pay for things like the ULEZ charges. The figures you see at the top of the page account for purchase price, cost of fuel, energy used, etc., and the residual value at the end of that 5-year period. So you can see there's a clear sort of cost differentiator there. And again, we're trying to make adoption of EVs more sort of broad for not just small, but not just large, but small small businesses as well. We have a relatively large cargo space. We supply the vehicles with adjustable height shelves and removable as well. This image doesn't actually show that shelf, but that's a 2-meter cube space. And on average, it will take upwards of 120 stops per day. We have a remote opening door locking mechanism for speed. People ask us about having options for fitting doors, etc. But if you ask any logistics company, what the major thing they're looking for is to reduce their time to get a parcel delivered. So we've worked really hard to have a very low step through and a minimum, if not zero, obstruction to getting in and out of the vehicle. Originally, the proven production version that we had previously, we've redeveloped from there, again using our user feedback, destructive testing, and we tried to create what is effectively a chassis cab vehicle. So the box on the back is completely modular, and it's, you know, it's 4 bolts, bolt on, bolt off, and people can sort of spec exactly what they want to have on the back of this vehicle. Anything from a pallet loading to take, you know, kegs of beer right the way up to a refrigerated, you know, temperature control box. We have a variable battery size. So what does that mean? That means that we only really need to offer the size of battery that you need for the day. There's no point in me offering 100 miles capability if you only want to use 20 miles. So that obviously means you're not carrying that weight around. You're also not paying for that battery as well. We've used sustainable materials, and we've sort of gone down the, we've got bio-based natural flax composite bodywork. And yeah, going into the future, we're also looking at using our sort of standard platform into more of the personal mobility areas of the industry. And we're looking at basically creating a taxi for personal and shared mobility, the rental market, gig economy, that sort of thing, but also with the capability of using this as a reactive logistics model as well. So hopefully that's given you a bit of an overview of who we are and what we've done. And yeah, I'd love any questions coming our way.
Oh, I didn't think he was going to make it, Adam. Well done, Adam.
Someone was waving his clock around.
He was desperate to blow his whistle. Desperate, absolutely desperate.
That was amazing.
That's great to hear, Adam. Thanks for presenting, and thanks for keeping it within the time. If we can get go through the whole session without John using his whistle, I'll be happy. So let's go to
waving his clock.
He wants to wave his clock all over the place. Let's go to the panel for some questions. In the meantime, I know there's a couple of questions in the Q&A tab, but don't forget to ask Adam some questions whilst we've got him on for the next 15 minutes or so. So Sarah, you've got your hands there, all patiently. You can go first.
I'm following all the rules today, Johnny. You'll be very pleased. So Adam, thank you for walking us through that. I get the impression there was so much more to say, but we had to limit it on time, which is a shame. But can you tell us a bit more about what you need from cities? Do you need donation? Do you need freight consolidation? What would really be your ideal to make something like this work?
I mean, ideally, cycling infrastructure. I think the UK during COVID has announced a £2 billion infrastructure budget. Clearly that needs to be used correctly. So what we're trying to do at the moment is put all of our customers together. You know, why wouldn't the blue chips of the world want to be in discussion with the governments to actually say, right, where do we want this infrastructure to go? Really, for me, communication is the biggest thing that we're missing at the moment. No one talks to each other. So
who's no one?
Well, DFT, TfL, and the people that actually want to use the infrastructure, as in large businesses, small businesses.
Yeah, well, that's a shame. We'll see if we can change that.
John. He's on mute.
You're on mute, John. We can't hear you.
I was eating my
We've done
toast.
12 episodes of this, John.
I completely forgot because I was eating my toast and I didn't want you to hear the crunching, so you didn't hear my whistle. And you,
Oh, so the whistle was going.
yes,
Oh,
I'm an idiot.
yeah.
Anyway, you can have those 30 seconds. I'm an idiot.
Thank you.
So where in the world is doing last mile deliveries the best?
Right now,
Yeah.
Scandinavia,
And why are they so much better?
because the culture is completely different. You know, they understand that cycling is more of a way of life out there, but actually the efficiencies that you can get on a bike through the centre of a city is you know, it's almost unmeasurable. You can't get through London anymore, but people still try in a
They're
car.
just so much better than us at EVs, at last mile delivery, at cycling. Oh, it's so frustrating. And we've got that money, so we've got to make sure that we invest it wisely. And let's hope that the various constituent parts of our government do actually start to speak to each other.
Hopefully.
Sorry, Sarah, did you have a question? Oh, no, over to Paul.
Oh, Lord.
Good. So I'm interested in the concept of it's a bike because it's got 4 wheels. My immediate question is, will it be allowed in the cycle lanes and, you know, sort of up the streets that are pedestrianised and so forth like that? What are the rules and regs around getting in and around? And the second question is, I love that you're working with some of the big blue chips and you know, the DPDs of this world, and that's a great partnership, and the technical development that you're getting from that will be amazing. What is your thought process around, sorry, I've got the cat here, it's just turned up. Hello, cat. At least it hasn't got anything in its mouth for once, you know, it's usually got a...
Is that a green screen cat as well, is it, Paul?
No, that's real as well. Okay, come here. Here we go. Oh, she doesn't really like it. There she is.
Oh,
Off you go, Pusscat. Go on. Sorry, where was I? Yes, getting it to sort of the next level, the SME, because I imagine this would be fantastic for small businesses, sandwich companies, you know, events, all of those types of things would be amazing. So what are your thoughts about that area of the market too?
Yeah, on your last point, I think the biggest thing that we're looking at the moment is a subscription-based model. So there's no initial, you know, large purchase cost or anything. We want to make, I think where EVs have sort of come foul a little bit is that they don't make it accessible for small companies to go and convert to electric vehicles. What we're trying to do is fill that gap between, you know, maybe where electric vehicles are still expensive, they don't necessarily pay for themselves in their lifetime, for a small business at least. But we can fill that gap, and we can provide vehicles that can maybe even save companies during and post COVID-19 as well, because it can potentially be a shared vehicle. You know, if this vehicle is sat outside a syndicate of 5 companies that want to, you know, own one vehicle, because the butchers uses it on the morning, or the bakers use it on the morning, the butchers use it at lunchtime, the candlestick makers in the afternoon. You know, why shouldn't we have a shared mobility platform? So again, that's part of our subscription model.
Can I just say, brilliantly done, butcher, baker, candlestick maker, fabulous.
BBC
BBC market.
Butcher, but yeah.
and to my first point in terms of the accessibility and stuff.
Yeah, so we're allowed in cycle lanes. The rules state that a cycle lane must be a minimum of 1.5 metres wide. Generally speaking, they aren't. They're all over the place. We're a 1 metre wide vehicle. The reason why we have 4 wheels is purely because it's safe. You know, if you have ever been on a trike, they're pretty bloody dangerous. So yeah, I definitely wouldn't want to go down to 3 or 2 wheels, and it also means that you're spreading that load that you're carrying over those 4 wheels and 4 axles. So generally speaking, what we've designed is a vehicle that not can only go into cycle lanes, it can go through pedestrian zones. It'll fit between the 1.2 metre wide bollards, but equally it will also go on the road, and road users don't get annoyed by it because you've got high level brake lights and indicators, etc. You're capable of look signal maneuver on the roads, as well as not annoying the cyclist in the cycle lane.
That's really great, Adam. Fantastic.
Sarah, over to you. You're there for me.
Oh, you're down there. No, you're down there. Cool. It's me again, Adam. Sorry, I wanted to talk more about how the thing is constructed. Does it have a different wheelbase option, and can you buy it with different bodies attached?
Yeah. So again, we've taken the sort of 50-year-old design of the Ford Transit van and made it on an e-cargo bike platform. So the chassis cab is essentially the standard part, and the rear box will be completely customizable.
So that was a 2 meter cubed price comparison, wasn't it, over the ENV 200 per day? How does it scale up? Does it still stay pretty impressively like a third of the cost, or does it start to shift the bigger the kit? How much does it cost in general?
It's relatively inexpensive to spec a different size box. Again, it all depends on the efficiency of that vehicle in a day in its given use case. Generally in the centre of a city. So 2 meters cubed is about the average day's worth of deliveries for mobile phones and stocks.
Yeah, well, that's very exciting. I'm so glad you're on. Thank you for coming to share with us.
John, last question, and then we go over to Matt from the mailroom. Or was that what you was going to announce?
No, not at all. No, I was merely going to ask, probably Paul, actually. Paul, van or bike? You're the van man. What do you think?
It's a great question, because I think with, when we're thinking about true mobility as a service, and we're thinking about transition and evolution, this is a cool idea, and I love the fact that it's so adaptable to the the potential ice-free zones like Oxford, and maybe other cities are going to go down that route as well. So it kind of helps potentially local traders. It kind of has a lot to build out. So much as I love the humble van, I see this as a sort of a step below almost a car derived van, and a smaller van with a great degree of flexibility, which is what the sector needs. So I love my vans, and for all those other operations, absolutely, but this fits a true gap in the market, I think.
Can I just point out that Simon Brace, genius, has called it the Vike.
Oh, yes.
Like that a lot.
Adam was gonna say something though, so let's give him a. Were you gonna come back at me and tell me I'm talking rubbish?
No, well, originally we did call it the E-van. So
okay.
Okay, excellent. Can I ask Matthew to come live from the mailroom, because we've got several questions there that need answering from the audience. Hi, Matthew.
Yeah. Hello. Right, Adam. Got some questions here for you.
Cool.
So let's whip through these ones. So what's the maximum weight load on the EAVs? Is the first question. That's from Will Burgess.
So currently it's 150 kilos, but we are working on it. That's purely based on what the load rating of the tyre can take. The chassis is way above that. We're currently working with a very large OEM tyre manufacturer to bring to market in weeks a new tyre that will take that up to 250 kilos.
Real. Next question from Tim Tanner regarding EAV rollout. What crash testing has been carried out? It looks very fragile.
Technically speaking, we don't have to do crash testing because it's not a homologated vehicle. It's an e-bike. But crucially, we have. I wouldn't call it a sort of traditional crash test dummy test, but we've designed all the bodywork so it's super flexible. We actually use a bio-based natural flax composite to make the bodywork up, so you can quite literally run up against it and it will absorb the energy and take a shunt. The front window as well is 1.5 mil polycarbonate, so you can literally push the windscreen in and out. It doesn't hurt the pedestrian, and that's where we're mainly sort of seeing the potential risk for collisions.
Brill. Gareth Jones asks, what is the charging type? Is it just 3-pin plug or?
Yeah, so again, that's the beauty of our vehicle, is that you only need a 3-pin plug. It's a laptop charger, basically. So the infrastructure requirement to run a fleet of our vehicles is, what you've got in the wall already.
Simon Brace, van man from the Lake District, asks, where do these stand as far as vehicle category and insurance, etc.?
So they are classified as an e-bike.
There we go, classified as an e-bike. So they don't need to be taxed and insured, which was another question, I would take it.
Technically, you can also ride one of these when you're 14.
Child
Child
labour.
labour.
Sounds good to me. I've got some lazy teenagers in my home.
Me and Mr. Kirby there, completely the same thought.
Great minds.
Where do these stand as, we've done that one. So I may have missed you to coffee grinding, but how do you charge the batteries on your vehicle? So we've got that as just plug into the 3-pin socket.
Or you can remove the battery and swap it out.
Oh, right, cool. So you can just have like a spare one on the side.
Yep.
Could this be used as a coffee sandwich van? I think we covered that one in the talk that we said.
Yeah, certainly.
It's a good idea for coffee sandwich vans. So that was a Sia Khalid. That's all your questions out of here, guys.
Yay, thank you.
Quickly through for you.
Fantastic. We're very much on
Onwards and
time.
upwards.
So, well, keep up with the good questions, audience. So I think that's our time with Adam for now. We will see him back later in the show. But
Great job,
now,
Adam. Well done, mate.
goodbye,
Thank
Adam,
you.
and thank you very much. We are a couple of minutes early, but next on, I'd like to welcome Michael to the EV Cafe. So, hello, Michael.
Woohoo.
Hi,
Oh,
everyone.
he's still
Welcome,
awake.
welcome.
Well done.
This
11.
big pint of
Don't
coffee.
Yeah. Not my
The
coffee.
stage is
white wine.
yours. Oh, yes. Yes.
Sauvignon Blanc, obviously.
Obviously. Right. Well, look, good afternoon, everybody. I hope your coffee is warm and pastries are crispy. I'm joining you from a very dark, very, very dark and stormy night in faraway New Zealand, where it's winter and nearly midnight. So, as I showed you, I've got a lovely glass of wine, and you're just going to have to put up with me sipping it every now and then. You've heard a little bit of introduction. I'm co-founder of EV Maritime. We're a maritime technology company in New Zealand here, which specialises in electric and low emission inshore commercial vessels, boats. Our first focus is electric fast commuter ferries. But to make sure that you believe I'm really in New Zealand, I've got a few images to share with you. So if you'll just bear with me, I'll see if I can figure out how to do that.
John Curtis has raised a good point. We've actually got plenty of time for you, Michael. So if you want to have 10 minutes, then the stage is yours.
Oh, well, we'll just see how we go. I'll see if I can keep awake that long.
Adam might be a
It's
bit
very
cross.
interesting. It's very
Give him
new
some
to the
time.
EV Cafe. So
Yeah.
very interesting.
Now, let me see. Why is this working? Not working. Right, here we go. So I just thought I'd share a photo of my lounge so that you know where I am. I couldn't get my camera to recognize it in the night, but so yeah, you'll recognize this as classic example of New Zealand vernacular architecture, which is much revered around the world. And but as well as the architecture and the movies that made our architecture so recognizable, we are known for some other things. So I'm going to share some of those with you as well. Sheep, for example. Some of you may be disappointed to hear that this is not the Auckland High Street, and we are not doing ferries for sheep. We're doing them for people. This is in fact a farm of which we have many, but we don't have them in our cities quite so much. This is a kiwi. Kiwis come from New Zealand, and they are birds, not fruit. What they do have in common with the fruit, that you probably know of, is that they're brown and furry, and they can't fly. We're also pretty well known for postcards like this one, which is actually a photograph of a lake which powers a hydroelectric power station, of which we have quite a few, which is why our electricity network is nearly 90% renewable down here, which makes doing things electric kind of a bit more worthwhile, which is nice. And of course, we're famous for our men. As you will well know, all New Zealand men are extremely athletic, just like these ones. I had to crop myself out of that photo, but rest assured I was there. And of course, the list goes on and on. But I didn't come all this way from my warm bed to give you a list of the reasons why it would have been nice for you to have visited New Zealand before we all stopped the aeroplanes. I came here to talk about boats, and in particular, New Zealand's knack for really fast, clever ones. And that's one of our really fast, clever ones. Now, what we're doing though isn't that at all. We're doing, if I can make that work, I'm having a few little technical challenges with two screens here. This is our boat, and we've designed an electric fast ferry as our first project. And the reason we've started there, because we're not just about ferries, we're about marine technology in general, as long as it's zero emission. We started with electric ferries because it's really the lowest hanging fruit for electrification. Ferries come and go, known distances, reliable schedule, always from the same wharves. So we've designed a ferry which is not only designed around this beautiful city, which is my home city of Auckland, but many other commuter uses around the world. But to give you a couple of examples, here we are in Auckland. Auckland's ferries today do about 6 million passenger journeys per year. That was a 2019 number. And that's on a population of about 1 million people. And there we are, there's our city. Those 6 million passenger journeys involve burning about 13 million litres of diesel every year in that fleet. Which, interestingly enough, the 25 boats that do that produce nearly half the emissions of all of the 1,360 buses which operate in Auckland, and their 66 million passenger journeys. So start doing the numbers, 10 times or 11 times more journeys by the buses, but only twice as much diesel. Sort of shows you that there's a bit of a prize there if we can electrify the ferries. And the other nice thing about the ferries is that the capital cost of a ferry, although it's like an electric bus, it's higher than the diesel equivalent. The capital cost per tonne of carbon displaced is about half for an electric ferry what it is for an electric bus. So they stack up nicely. One of the main things that we've been focusing on in developing electric ferries, here this is a picture of our first product, is not only that they are zero emission, but they are just as capable as the diesel boats which they displace. So this is an equivalent size. In this case, this is a typical kind of size for a ferry down here, 200 passengers, 24-metre boat, some bikes, and it's the equivalent speed as well to a diesel ferry. It's got a range that will enable it to do any of the commuter service routes. It can basically operate for up to about an hour, and we've got rapid charge. We are opportunity charging every time we get to the dock, and I'll show you a little graph that tells you a little bit about how that works. But one of the things we discovered, well, we kind of knew about anyway, but we've exploited, is that diesel-powered boats are actually really lazy. They're generally quite inefficient, and they've been designed to be pretty cheap to build. And so what we've done is we've designed boats to be really expensive to build. Well, they're proving to be expensive to build, but we're working on that. We've designed boats to be lightweight and fast and super slippery. So we're using lightweight composites, just like we heard about with the EAV guys in their last presentation. In this case, carbon fiber, recycled PET foam cores, and we're using hull shapes that aren't practical to build out of aluminium, but we're building them in composites, which enables us the flexibility to make much less draggy hulls. We're using foil-assisted hydrodynamics, sort of drawing actually from some of the America's Cup stuff that I showed you pictures of before. So this is a boat which uses a lot less energy, as well as the fact that the energy is more cost effective and green. We're also bringing in a sort of a, like a lot of people in the EVs, oops, I shouldn't really want to do that just yet, much more connectivity and sort of Internet of Things thinking around how we're building the internal systems of the ferries in order to integrate better into the wider public transport networks. Ferries, typically in most cities, are not well integrated with the rest of the public transport system. Buses and trains typically are much better managed, but ferries still sort of sit out there on the side in a traditional kind of place, and the captain just sort of hops on and drives backwards and forwards all day long. We think there's a huge opportunity to improve the resilience and the efficiency and the asset utilization and ultimately the customer service and cost effectiveness of ferry services by taking on a more connected and more real-time managed approach. I talked a bit about opportunity charging before, and you can see here a little bit of an example. This is a sort of 3 boats operating in a mixed route schedule, starting at sort of 6 o'clock in the morning and running through till whatever, 10 o'clock at night. And you can sort of see that when they're heading down, so this is the state of charge that we're showing in the top graph. And so if we mix those up, we don't have to fully recharge. People often say, how long does it take to recharge the boat? And of course, it's a little bit like an electric car or anything else. You don't have to fully recharge it from flat every time. You've just got to get enough charge to keep the thing going. And so we manage the charge and the charge opportunities through the day and mix things up across the fleet. And you can see at the bottom, we're also then managing the load on the charger. So we're looking there at the amount of charge being delivered and looking at smoothing the load and minimizing the impact on the power grid and the process. So the other aspect of our work that we're doing at the moment is looking at hydrogen for the maritime industry as well. And we're having a lot of people asking us about, will things end up electric or will things end up hydrogen? Where we are on that at the moment is that we think that battery electric is going to prevail for things like commuter ferries, harbour tugs and pilot boats, which are all typically boats which go relatively short distances and in reasonably reliable, known fashions. But I think hydrogen is going to have quite a significant place in the tourism industry in particular, the seafood industry, and not so much in New Zealand, but in Europe, offshore wind as well. So where boats are going a lot further, or where a boat's got to go out and work hard all day long. So that's pretty much, that's what I had prepared to say, which is probably about my 5 minutes. I don't know whether maybe we just want to, if I stop sharing my screen, if I can, here it is, stop sharing.
Thank you, Michael. John, how were we for time? Did you sound your whistle when you're mute again?
I did sound my whistle. I don't think I'm on mute.
I'll try again. I think you've got an issue with your whistle.
I think you do.
And your big clock as well.
Is that
what? Oh, I heard it that time.
Is that it?
Yeah.
But do you know what? That is the first time ever, Michael, that I have seen all the panelists as you were speaking go, oh. That was
excellent.
Cool.
I have a question. Yeah, so as I say, very interesting stuff. So, so talking on the proposed BEV route, battery electric vehicle route, I'd like to know more about the kind of energy storage, the electric motor to power the ferry, the charging infrastructure that's required, the speed, how many kilowatts that is or proposed. Yeah, loads of questions around that kind of architecture of the ferry.
Sure, no problem. So that particular boat, that's a 24-metre boat, that's got different battery options that range from just under 1 megawatt hour to around 1.5 megawatt hours. They are lithium ion, probably, almost in most cases NMC, battery chemistry. We are rapid charging those at between 1.5 and 1.8 megawatts. DC charging at about 750 volts. So we keep the transformer on the dock to save weight on the boats. So in some cases, we can, in some of the cities that we've been looking at, we've been doing studies for about 5 different cities so far. And in some of those cases, we can take that charge direct off the grid at 1.5 megawatts. Others, we would put a battery in there to smooth the load. And in fact, it can be more cost effective to use a battery as well. And that kind of depends a bit on what your utilization on the charger is. What were your other questions? Speed of the boat does 25 knots. It uses 4 permanent magnet AC motors driving water jets in this case. So it's got 4 water jets, 2 per hull. What was the other? That's answered most of it, to be honest. It's really interesting to see what's on there. I mean, I'd love to see how big the batteries look inside the ferry and how much it takes. Sarah, I can see you've got your hand up.
What's your global takeover plan?
Come to Southampton.
Yeah, that's right. I used to live in Southampton, so I'd love to come back.
All the best people do.
Oh, good.
My hometown.
Excellent. Our global takeover plan, well, we'd really like our first fleet to be in New Zealand because we figure that it'll be easier to iron out any of the difficulties that we have down here, and we'd like it to happen before we don't want to have to wait until we can fly again before we can sell some boats. Yeah. So we'd like to start down here. To take Auckland as an example, there's a pretty old fleet of boats. In fact, a lot of the harbour cities of the world have got very old fleets of ferries. The ferries here all pretty much need replacing, so we're working hard to persuade all the right people that we've got exactly the solution for them. And but ultimately, our plan for the rest of the world is actually we think that our job, like any of us in business, our job is to make our customers look good. And if we're going to be selling big fleets of ferries to transport agencies, local government and whatever around the world, the best way to do that isn't to try to build a whole lot of boats in New Zealand and export them all around the world, because we figure that a lot of people actually want jobs in their own hometowns, not to just support jobs on the other side of the world. So we're structured to partner with boat builders all around the world and help them to build boats in market. So part of this is a technology transfer model behind the way we're structuring the project as well. Yeah.
So we have a couple of questions. Anything else from the panel before we bring Matt Kiziak online? John.
Michael, really just interested in, presumably you're looking for partners globally who would be able to sell on a concessionary basis, pick up the license and retail your product for you.
Yeah, we haven't entirely decided that yet. We might do, but our experience of that hasn't been all that successful in the past of selling through brokers or agents. And so we are, it's fair to say, sitting on the fence as to whether we would do that as direct sales or do that do that through agents. And I think probably our view on that's probably changed in the last 6 months, because we used to spend most of our time on airplanes flying all around the world and didn't really think anything of it, and the world's changed. So,
well, can I just ask you a favour? Should you get your first one in the water, can we have an EV Cafe New Zealand down under kind of vibe?
I'd love that. That'd be great. On board. We should do it.
Wouldn't that be cool?
It'd be really cool. Yep, absolutely. And we'll get you on at midnight your time, and it'll be about lunchtime our time.
So sorry.
Not at all. It's fine.
I have a quick question before we go to the mailroom, if it's okay, JB.
Yep.
Do you think that the All Blacks will ever recover from the beating that we gave them in the World Cup?
No, I don't think so. I think we tend to hold on to our losses for a long time, no matter how many victories we have in the meantime.
Good. I saw you making a big point of it, so I just thought I would just address it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. No. Absolutely.
Pleasure.
Johnny, before we go, Michael.
John.
That was a foghorn.
It was a foghorn. What's
I
the
thought he
dog
was going to
want for?
play Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, but
Absolutely.
Thank you. Beauty. Thanks.
Okay, so Matthew, can I ask you to come back on so we can have some questions from the Q&A tab? Hi, Matt.
Hi, Michael. Right, we've got a couple of questions
Hi, Matt.
here for you. E-ferry must have greatly reduced noise advantages for the city. Amsterdam, etc., as opportune markets. Would you agree? Yeah, that's a very not much a question. Sorry, it's more of a statement.
Yep, absolutely. In fact, I think Amsterdam's getting some electric ferries, if I'm not mistaken. There are quite a few electric ferries around. What we're doing that's a little different is electric fast ferries.
Right, so just
we were talking
if we
about
just told you
Scandinavia.
there, because I'm going to have a question here, Michael, which you might just be starting to answer.
Okay.
Scott's asked the question, what sets you apart from builds such as the Damon Ferry E3? Now, I have no idea what that is, but I'm sure you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's right. So that's exactly what I was about to answer. There are a lot electric ferries around the world, and like you were saying before, Scandinavia has kind of led the charge in some of that stuff, like they have in a lot of other areas of electrification. What's different in our case is the high performance. So nobody else is doing electric fast ferries. And so we're doing boats which are every bit as fast as the diesel ferries. Now, in somewhere like Amsterdam, my recollection of the ferries I've taken in Amsterdam is reasonably short
Hazy?
hops. Hazy, yeah, a little hazy, but little short hops of the ferries that everybody stays standing up on. Whereas we're talking about ferries which will go fast for, typically they're sort of 40 to 50 minute journeys in most cities at 25 knots at about 50 kilometers an hour.
Yeah,
so
I don't think you'd want to be doing 25 knots down the Amsterdam canals, would you?
No, exactly. That's right.
So I see as asked, you mentioned technology transfer. Can the powertrain be adopted to other hulls?
Yes, it can. The powertrain can be adapted to other hulls. Whether it's exactly the right powertrain for that hull, it depends. So what I've shown you is only our first product, which is a 24 metre. We're actually developing a 35 metre at the moment as well, which is larger capacity and a little faster. And we've got conversations about a couple of other projects with some other customers as well. So we're trying to focus on the specific product that we've developed, but we keep getting dragged off to think about other ones. And this would probably be another example where we'd find ourselves tempted to get dragged off and look at what the best powertrain for a different hull would be. And we're very happy to do that. Very, very open.
Yeah. So have you done any sea state trials for estuaries or inshore travel?
We haven't done any trials, but we've done a lot of computational fluid dynamics work. So these are low wash ferries, and it's quite a good point, because a lot of wake is definitely a significant issue for a lot of them. Estuaries are also shallow draft typically, and so shallow draft introduces issues with the way the waves form, particularly as they get close to the land and it gets very shallow. So that is, we actually haven't entirely finalized every aspect of our hull form at the moment, but we're very happy with the way the wash reduction
things are looking.
We've got.
Yeah. And last question I've got in here for you: what are you doing with shoreside storage to enable rapid charging during passenger drops? I think you covered most of that, didn't you?
Yeah, it varies. What I think we're looking at most likely, it's very case specific. In some cases, it looks like using LTO batteries that you can charge harder, much higher C rates, where we're not looking for very large amounts of power, but so it all depends on how big the battery bank is and whether it's capacity that we want. But yeah, battery backup on shore is a feature of some of the chargers that we're developing. Some of them will be just direct off grid, but some of them will be battery backup. Helps with the resilience as well. Yeah.
Cool. That's it from the mailroom.
Great. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Matt. Big thanks to you then, Michael. Very interesting. Thanks for answering all of my panelists' guest questions. Chat box did go quiet, which is always a good sign.
Yeah.
But for now, we say goodbye until 1:30, although we do appreciate and be mindful that it is midnight where you are. So if you want to go to bed, then we don't blame you.
You can.
Yeah. I might do that. So much as I'd love to stick around for a coffee, I might do that. But I'm going to tune into this next talk as well. So
okay, excellent. Thank you,
Michael.
Michael.
Thanks for having me
Really
on.
appreciate it.
Michael,
Meet you all.
if you could just join the EV Cafe group and share your slides, that'd be great. Also, if there's any questions for you, then they
On
can be answered
LinkedIn.
there. Yeah, on LinkedIn. So I'm sure
Okay.
Sarah will
I'll
point in the right
invite you
direction.
now.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sarah. That'd be great. All right.
Okay.
Nice
Bye,
to meet you.
Michael. And
Bye.
so now I would like to introduce you to Mark. I'd like to introduce Mark to the EV Cafe. Everyone, as I said early on before, please be nice. He's my boss.
No, we won't
Mark.
be.
Hello, Mark.
Nice to Johnny
Welcome
Berry.
to the EV Cafe.
No, to you, Mark.
Wonderful.
Hello. Thanks for
Hi,
joining
guys.
us, Mark.
I feel honoured to be joining this industrious group, to be fair.
What I can say, Mark, is it's good to see that you have a proper haircut.
Absolutely right. Yeah, I've cultured this over the complete lockdown. I did try the Paul Kirby approach for about a day, and then I couldn't do it anymore.
Mark, would you like to go ahead and share your screen and tell us a bit more about the future from a manufacturer's perspective? Just, you know how this works. You've been watching quietly in the background for the past 12 weeks.
Do you think?
And just so John Curtis, he loves using his big clock and whistle. Don't give him the satisfaction of using it. You do actually only have 10 minutes. But if John's brave enough to put his whistle out. Over to you, Mark. Thank you.
Just remember who's paying the bill, Johnny.
Oh, we're getting paid. Excellent.
Yeah, who's getting paid?
Right.
You heard it here first.
For everybody other than the people I can see on the screen, for those that don't know me, my name's Mark Dickens. I'm the Fleet and Remarketing Director at Groupe Renault. And apologies, I wasn't on the EV Cafe to start with today. We are we are the only car and LCD OEM on the Smart Transport Board. So we work directly with the Department for Transport on future transportation policy. And that board meeting was happening this morning, so I wasn't able to get to the start of the EV Cafe, so sorry about that.
That's great.
And what I'm going to show you today, there was a Smart Transport conference it was due in February, I think, but like a lot of things got cancelled. And this was one of the presentations we gave then, so hopefully it will be of interest. From a manufacturer's perspective, so apologies if I keep looking left, by the way, it's just I've got a dual screen in my office, so the presentation's on the left-hand screen. From a manufacturer's perspective, we've seen many of the same kind of mega trends we've spoken about on EV Cafe over the last few weeks, or is it months, actually? I think it might be, it's a long time, I think. We've been running this for sort of 15, 16 weeks, isn't it? But certainly in terms of the mega trends, you've got increasing urbanisation. You've got over 60% of the global population expected to live in urban areas, certainly by 2030. There's a growing concern about sustainability. You've heard about that on the EV Cafe as well. Sustainability of human activity, with an estimated quadrupling of the transported goods by 2050. And something Paul will be interested in, I'm sure. And an economy which is increasingly based around shared and on-demand services, certainly as younger generations start to consume products and services. The trends currently manifest themselves in the form of congestion, emissions, poor air quality, and everything that's associated with an impact on public health. At the same time, there's a relatively siloed transportation system, which completely lacks flexibility today. What I'd like to take you through this afternoon is what we're doing with clean air solutions that work right now today, what we're testing for tomorrow, and then give you a glimpse of some of the vehicles that are coming to market. Certainly by the time when we're looking at on road transportation, they're saying what's the policy now between now and 2050. Then there's some really interesting vehicles, certainly on the LCV side, that are coming to market. So where existing public transport doesn't work for individuals, and this is a topic that's really come out, I'm sure you'll agree, over the lockdown period, increasingly people are becoming more and more concerned about public transport. Car sharing schemes are an important step to reducing the total number of vehicles on the road. I'm sure that's no surprise to anybody. The primary benefit of car sharing is evidence that it can help reduce total stock of cars on the road and the total stock of cars that are required in an urban area. So for each car on a car sharing scheme, it's estimated that between 7 to 15 private cars are no longer required. Even better, there's evidence to suggest that they free up between 6 and 14 car parking spaces. So on average, cars are stationary in the UK for around 96% of the time, which I found incredible actually. So the case for making more efficient use of the car stock is very, very strong. Average journey times as well. I think the average journey type lends themselves quite well to car sharing. If you're a driver or passenger, cars account for only around 8% of trips under half a mile. But that rises sharply to 76% of all trips between 2 and 3 miles. The length of the journeys are quite short on average. So it should come as no surprise then that of 32 million cars on the road and registered in the UK, the two of the top 3 models on the road today are small hatchbacks, so B segment cars. So think Renault Clio, or as you can see on the picture there, a Zoe. So if you increase car sharing, you can expect to see a reduction in the stock of cars required, certainly in an urban area, with the associated benefits of alleviating congestion and reducing pollutants. The second opportunity we have is when car sharing companies adopt 100% battery electric vehicles. And then that's the real key to reducing the pollutants. Many of you that'll be on this call now are already using car sharing schemes, I'm sure. And as our offices are based in the capital city, I thought I'd just highlight 2 initiatives that we're doing in 2 other capital cities, both in Madrid and Paris. We worked in cooperation with and launched a car sharing company called Zity. So we're in collaboration with Ferrovial. Ferrovial, I'm sure you know, also run Heathrow Airport. And we've deployed 725 100% electric vehicles, Zoes, into Madrid on car sharing, and 500 into Paris, and that was just launched this year. So the Zoe, it is 100% electric. Johnny, I didn't know if you knew that. Just like that. When you think back to what I said earlier about the most popular licensed cars in the UK, it's a B segment hatchback. It's exactly what in 2 of the top 3 cars that sell in the UK. It's exactly the right size. So while many manufacturers are launching luxury EVs, our role, certainly in the market, is a democratization of an electric vehicle, bringing that car and van to market at an affordable price. So each Zoe on a car sharing scheme saves 2 tons of CO2 per year in the city. So you can see the impact that it's already having in Madrid and Paris, and certainly you're going to start to see this in and around the cities in the UK. So the success that we've seen in Madrid and Paris has certainly been based on the strong cooperation between the manufacturer, the technology, the company that brings this to market, but also the local authorities, because without the policy, which I've just been discussing with the Smart Transport Board, it just won't happen. So for us, we think that is an appropriate model to fight on the kind of the war of congestion and pollution. And slightly different to car sharing, as you're now starting to see a growth in the market, is subscription services. That is certainly the exponential growth that we've seen, certainly since the lockdown. But also with subscription, you tend to think of a private customer subscribing to a car, and that car includes insurance, maintenance, repair, it's the lease cost, and the customer isn't subscribing to a 3-year lease. In some cases, you have a car for as little as a month and then swap to another car. But in actual fact, of the car subscription models we've been using, the cars generally are kept for almost up to 2 years. People don't like to keep swapping cars. And I think certainly coming out of the lockdown, that's something that we'll see more and more, from a shift from car sharing to car subscription, which is just as easy as car sharing, but you keep the car longer. So all of which allows us to make much more flexibility out of the car stock that's on the road. So there was, when I started to do this presentation in February, it was a trend. And I can see it's going to become a real priority point for the rest of the year in the UK. So for us, we will announce shortly, we've just signed over 1,000 Zoes to one car subscription company. That will come out in the press fairly soon. And that's the first one. So there are many more of these that are growing. And a lot of them are startup companies, but you can start to see that big organizations are taking these on. Now, we've been doing this for 10 years, nearly 10 years now. So it's not just about bringing a new model to market, selling the new model. It's about all that experience that you learn with data and the experience and the problems and difficulties that come into the market of bringing these things to market. So as you can see on the bottom of the slide there, we've now just topped over 285,000 EVs in Europe. So you can say that we are pretty successful at selling EVs, although relatively small market share in the UK. Going forwards, I'll talk to you in a minute about, it's generally electric vehicle based, but there's also a range of hybrid and plug-in hybrids that are coming very, very quickly to the market. Some of you will have seen the introduction of Clio and Capture hybrids for this side, but also in van technology as well. So to discuss what else is happening today in logistics and last mile, I've spoken about how mobility can work for the individual. What about goods and services? This is it's a key buzzword, isn't it? Last mile, but what does it actually mean? So vans are the next largest category after cars, with just over 10% of the registered vehicles in the UK, at 4.1 million vehicles on the road. I'm sure Paul will correct me if that's slightly wrong. Van traffic makes up for around 16% of all traffic on the road, and that is up 10% from 1993. Now, I know 1993 to some of you will seem a very long time ago, depending on your age, but the most recent annual changes calculated between 2017 and 2018 show van traffic up nearly a percentage point. And I bet if you took that over the last 16 weeks, that will have quadrupled quite easily. All of which makes van traffic the fastest growing by body type on the roads today. And we tend to think of cars, but van traffic is just by far and away the fastest growing. So if we want to make clean air solutions really work, the adoption of EVs by the van market has to be addressed. The average van miles per year have remained stable since 1994. They're around 13,000 miles per year, average van miles, and that equates roughly to around 50 miles per working day. If you look at the stats on the screen, that means that electric vans on the market today are a viable option for many people at 50 miles, but not all. I appreciate not all, because as I said, there are 4.1 million vans doing lots and lots of miles. So what about tomorrow? So we launched, when talking about tomorrow, I'd just like to share some examples of initiatives we've been working on. These broadly fall into two sections. First of all, enhancers for electric vehicles. That's projects which extend the benefits of EVs versus what we were seeing today. Yeah, put the clock away. I spent 10 minutes on my introduction, so I can get away with another 10. So projects, so EV enhancers, that what we see today, so that's such as autonomous tech, and that helps mobility. Anyway, John, the interesting bit's coming up in a minute. You don't want to miss that.
Oh, come on then.
Chop, chop.
A world first. I don't know how many people know about Porto Santo. Anybody?
Is it the world first smart island, Mark?
It is also based on 4 key pillars, John. So you can see them on there.
Would they be the ones on the screen then?
What do you think? So we started this in 2018, and later you'll see how pivotal Porto Santo was to some of the technology that's coming. So the electric vehicles we deployed there were Zoe and Kangoo EV, and they were based pretty much on the bottom 2 pillars there, or bottom 3 essentially. So the stationary energy storage on the island is made out of second life batteries. And this is something that actually, to mention somebody else who's very good at this, is Tesla. Tesla are also doing a great job with second life batteries and making energy storage. So we deployed them on the island, and In the area of battery storage, funny enough, we've partnered with a company called Mobility House. So Mobility House, they deliver the largest energy storage system in Europe. So all made from electric vehicle batteries. So in order to make sure that we're not just designing and building a car that gets sold and used on the road, very much about the whole kind of 360 concept. So since Porto Santo, which is a really, really fascinating project, we've just launched another new smart island project on a place called Belle-Île-en-Mer, which is just off southwest Brittany. And that'll start to take some of the learnings from Porto Santo into the modern approach on the island. Belle-Île-en-Mer is perhaps a little bit more connected than Porto Santo was at the time. But we've also been working on the future of last mile. I mentioned it earlier. You can see on the bottom left-hand corner there something called EasyFlex. So as I mentioned earlier, at the time we were looking at a quadrupling of packages being delivered by 2050. But seriously, as I said, the lockdown has changed a lot. And what we won't do is go back. So a lot of people talk about going back to what we had before, getting back to normal. You know, it's a phrase that everyone keeps using. There isn't any going back. So what we have today is actually the new normal. And EasyFlex is a project. So that's a picture of an actual van in actual use. And we've got it placed in different logistics companies that won't be named here around Europe at the moment. So we're looking at things, collecting data on things such as geolocation, mileage, range, cargo, how they use the cargo loading doors, speed, stopping, all sorts of data collection to design the next future of our last mile delivery. So that's really, really point. So the second area is around autonomous vehicles. And this is where it starts to get a little bit interesting maybe for you. So in 2019, we launched an exclusive agreement between Renault, Nissan and Waymo. I'm not sure how many people are familiar with Waymo, for mobility services in France and Japan. So in the Paris region, we're working very closely with the authorities there to explore an implementation of fully autonomous mobility service from Charles de Gaulle, Boissy-Charles de Gaulle, to La Défense, which is a big business area in Paris. And then between October and November, you can start to see on the bottom right-hand corner there, something we launched in Paris-Saclay. It's a university campus town. And we launched an autonomous taxi. So the Zoe you can see there's no driver. The people are the drivers. Essentially, you sit in the car and the car drives and steers and moves it around. And that was quite an interesting pilot project to use. It's as you can see the picture of the Zoe, it's an adapted one for fully autonomous. There is a steering wheel, should something have gone wrong, but and people were very nervous at the start of that. But what it did do was allow people to move right around the town with no driver and 100% pick up and drop off geolocalization. So that's how we're working on autonomous tech. If we look at what's going on beyond today, so in all the examples I've cited so far, you've got electric, connected, autonomous technology. They talk about the vision of the future. So the first of the series of we've launched a series of concepts. The one on the bottom left there, EasyGo, was just at the end of last year. So that is a robo vehicle. That's what it looks like close up. It's both a vehicle and a service. So essentially no driver. It's part of the ecosystem, so it's fully connected. It's got a positive impact on the city by providing mobility, and this comes back to the mobility as a service properly. And as I said, 100% electric. The key point with this one is that you facilitate access by 6 people walking into it. You don't duck, unless you're a really tall guy like Johnny. You don't need to, or Matt actually. I'm not sure which is the tallest out of you two. But you don't have to duck your head to get in and out of it. So it's really, really good because you can walk in and out. You can go in and out with a pushchair. You can go in and out with a wheelchair. So it really does change the mobility concept. Third one we launched was Easy Ultimo. This one's very much about showcasing luxury cars and what they could look like from an electric vehicle point of view. And then lastly, the one that created a lot of the buzz was Morphos. So Morphos is how do I say, probably the nearest that you can see to a cross between the new Capture and a C-segment SUV that may or may not appear at some point in the future next year. So the battery range on these cars now exceeds that you would get out of petrol or diesel engines. So now you're getting to a real point where these cars are becoming a real life scenario. And the interesting point with Morphos is that where you can see the A pillar, so between the front wing and the front door, the car extends to take in a larger battery, and the larger battery giving you larger range. So that's it. Last slide for me, Johnny. You'll be pleased to know. When you tell me 10 minutes, you know you've got to give me a little bit more than that.
Secretly, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So key question for me is, what does the future of, so in summary, Easy Go, Easy Ultimo and Morphos are the concept cars of the future. Where, sorry, it wasn't the last slide. There is one more, and just keep Paul Kirby happy. So Easy Pro.
Too late for that.
Easy, yeah. Easy Pro. Now this is the one that's created quite a lot of buzz, certainly just towards the back end of last year. So this is, we unveiled it in 2018, to be fair. But in 2019, we started to make this one a reality. So this one is now only, its only delay really is legislation. So what is it? So this is it's a pod-based delivery system. As you can see it on the video now, the pod uses a field-based human concierge lead pod, so it does involve a driver for deliveries around the pods. Now you can see the pods there starts its journey at a central hub. The pods can then travel in convoy or separate off autonomously, and they deliver or set up the goods or services and offers. So you can see there are examples, an Amazon type locker or a cafe barista type thing there. But that's really going to change the future of parcel delivery when that sort of vehicle can run on the road. So hopefully that's given you a little bit of an insight into what we've got today, where we think things are going into and what we're doing in the group in terms of trialing what we bring to market, the Smart Island approach, but also a very quick glimpse into the future.
Thank you very much, Mark. Would you mind just stop sharing your screen so we can see your lovely faces again? You're lucky your presentation was really interesting, Mark. Actually, it was fantastic. The best presentation ever on EV Cafe and the best special guests.
You think so?
Oh, really?
Sorry. Mark, I just have one quick question for you. Is there any plans to create a zero-emission Star Trek USS Enterprise? Sorry, if you haven't seen the chat box recently, you've been likened to Captain Picard.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, well, I thought about it. But unfortunately, hang on, if you look at the picture behind me, it's parked somewhere up on the top of that tower.
Oh.
What are you, Mark Dickens, Fleet Director of Renault, presenting on the EV Cafe at 2 p.m. and Captain Picard by 3 p.m. Is that right? Paul, you had a question for Mark.
Yeah, I do. I've got lots actually, but I will try and limit them.
Snappy answers.
Yes, well, and try and get a snappy question. UK testing. So you mentioned a vehicle that is out and about and testing. You mentioned Europe specifically, and I'm guessing that vehicle has not made it to the UK yet. Maybe I'm wrong.
Easy Flex.
So,
this is the
the red one. Yeah, Postman Pack.
No, it's because when we developed it, we developed it in left-hand drive.
Yeah.
In fact, we were going to have one at the CV show, so people could come and see it and touch it and understand what it was doing. But obviously that all got cancelled in the end. And we did have one coming in with a company to test at the early part of this year, but everything changed.
Yeah.
So because we've got the left-hand drive vehicles already in test in Europe, they're all in Europe.
So I guess it was a sort of a lead-on question to the fact of right-hand drive vehicles, full stop, because Europe is under pressure from the CAFE regulations. The UK are coming out, Brexit, all that sort of stuff. So why don't I go for the juggler and say, how are you going to make sure that we get electric vans and cars in the UK that will help us meet our targets against a very demanding Europe, when all the head office and the decisions and testing seems to be in Europe.
Yeah, so it's a good point. So to put this into perspective, so the company or any manufacturer, whether it's Renault, Nissan, or anybody else, tend to run on around 10% of their overall global turnover as R&D budget. So just a general kind of rule of thumb. And you budget around 10%, you probably run about 8%. Most companies, and Renault included, are running about 13, 15% at the moment. Well, and I'm talking pre-lockdown, pre-COVID, because who knows what the turnover is during then. I don't even want to think about it. But so massive R&D going into this, right? Now, it only works on a global basis. Now, if you think about the UK, and I'll base it around vans, if you like. So the UK is the largest van market in Europe. So we are critical to the company's success to have right-hand drive vehicles. Now, of course, right-hand drive isn't only the UK and Ireland. It's, oh, hang on, got a poll come up in front of my screen. So it's
very distracting, Johnny.
Sorry.
So the UK is the biggest market. Then obviously the percentage of vehicles we sell in the UK as EV or hybrid or range extender count disproportionately to the European CAFE target. So we are absolutely a key priority country, I think is the word, key priority market, to make sure we have the vehicles. What you tend to find, if we're honest with ourselves, is that right-hand drive always launches slightly after left-hand drive. And that's for no other reason than factory upshift on a new model. Because the volumes that we sell from a company perspective are greater in left-hand drive than right-hand drive, they need to get the left-hand drive out first. So there's always a bit of a lag between right-hand drive, left-hand drive, but absolutely coming. What we won't do is ever launch something before it's right to bring to market. And some of the, you know, when you think about the concept cars I was showing you there, some of those have been in operation for a long time now. You know, the concept pod type van that I showed, that vehicle shown as a concept in 2018, it's been tried by the end of 2019 in certain areas, but it will only ever come to market once the quality is right, which goes back to the 10-year point. So you have to learn a lot over those 10 years before you can start bringing the vehicles to market. And but it's a quality point, because electric vehicles are essentially a new market. So if you launch a poor quality product in a new market, you're dead pretty quickly.
Yep.
Sure. So a follow-up question. I'm prodding the beast here. Why are you developing PHEV then?
Well, because
I don't understand the you know, to start developing that now feels like the wrong decision, because the move to electric is much quicker than we expected.
Well, it is, but the plug-in hybrid technology is a lot cheaper to develop. That's the first point. Plus, you've got a combination of battery electric and hybrid. So if I just take Clio and Capture for a moment, they're both similar engines in both of those products. One is full hybrid, one is plug-in hybrid. But you will see at some point the plug-in hybrid replaced by hybrid, and then eventually it'll be EV.
What do you mean by hybrid, Mark?
So hybrid is so fully autonomous in terms of being able to charge itself.
Charge itself, what, with an engine?
Yeah, with a petrol engine. Yeah.
So it's charging itself with an engine.
Yes.
So that kind of again feels a little bit counter.
Well.
Yeah. So on braking, on driving, accelerating and braking regenerates the battery.
This is like being on Newsnight with Jeremy Pax.
I'm going to be nice now. I'm going to be nice.
I'm not being funny, but the plug-in hybrid, it's got a plug.
Yeah, but that's a good thing. That supports the transition to fully electric motoring, because it gets people used to it. But I will just say this for the record: I am most impressed as Renault as a manufacturer for trying to get some kind of range out there of vehicles, particularly in the van sector. I'd love to see a mid-sized van, something like this sort of size, coming out in electric. but I do commend you for doing it. I wish the charging was a little quicker, so the onboard charging. But apart from that, it's a brilliant offer.
Yeah, just on that note quickly, this Friday on LinkedIn at 11 a.m. We will be launching our latest electric vehicles, ELCVs, by Renault Pro Plus. So make sure you tune in on LinkedIn at 11 a.m. this Friday. We have to hurry things along at the moment. Can we just hold fire on the questions? Because we have actually got one more special guest. We will have time at the end. So Mark, I would like you to stay on and invite previous presenters back on as well. So Michael, if you've gone to bed, I don't blame you. It's after midnight. Some great presentations this afternoon. Appreciate that some of you have had to dash off because you're trying to combine this presentation and this conference with the low CPP. But this is recorded. We'll also ask Alec Sharp to come on. He is actually a very last minute kind of guest to the EV Cafe, but he is going to share some information on two-wheeled electric mobility and of now and the future. But in the meantime, keep those questions, Sarah, and keep the questions coming into the Q&A tab. And after Alec's done his 5 minutes to the EV Cafe, then we'll go back to Q&A while we've got everybody on the screen. So over to you, Alec. Thanks for patiently waiting. Welcome to the EV Cafe.
Thank you very much. It's been really interesting listening to everybody so far, and I feel that I'm going to be I am hugely unprepared for this, and my PowerPoint presentation is like it's a primary school presentation. Whilst everyone's been speaking, I've been cobbling together some images just to give you a vague idea of what I'm actually talking about, but it should work. I'm just going to give it a go now to try and share the screen, all right?
Yeah, you've only got 4 minutes left.
You be nice.
No pressure, no pressure.
We've afforded a lot of flexibility to certain individuals. I'm sure we can afford a little of flexibility here.
If I press share screen now, and I go this way.
Yeah, while you're doing that, great to see Michael.
Are we missing Adam? Has Adam gone to bed instead?
Where's Adam gone? Maybe. Oh, I think he might have had something on.
That work?
Okay.
Yes, Alec, we got you, mate.
Looks great.
See that?
That looks amazing.
Okay, first of all, my name's Alec Sharp. I'm the founder of English Electric Motorco, which is, as far as I'm aware, the UK's first all-electric motorcycle and moped dealership. I've kind of extended that a little bit further into e-bicycles, amongst other things as well, but that's what we primarily set up as about 3 or 4 years ago now. We're based in sort of central East Anglia, so right out in the boons of nowhere. And although we sell nationwide, our history before that, very briefly, was we were custom motorcycle builders, so we built sort of one-off bespoke builds for a clientele sort of all over the world, and I had absolutely no interest and I had no time for anything electric whatsoever. We were dealing with classic motorcycles of all sorts of shapes and sizes. And anything that didn't make a loud noise and spew flames, I wasn't interested in. So like I said, I had no interest at all. But then a friend of mine asked me to come and try one of these newfangled electric motorcycles, which just so happened to be a Zero motorcycle, a Californian brand. And we're down in one of the 2 dealerships that were in London. This would have been about 3 years ago. And I had a go, and it was genuinely one of those like light bulb moments when I went, this is unbelievable. It is so good. Because I've been in an electric car before, but for me, a car has a different purpose in terms of, why you drive. For me, I can lump a load of stuff in there. I can get more than one person on, and I can get from A to B. Irrelevant of the weather. For a motorcycle, for me anyway, it was this more, and for a lot of people, it's a more kind of, I guess, a more of an emotional experience. You're riding because you love the sensation of riding. And I felt like electric was going to basically take that away, the noise, the vibration, and everything that goes with Basically it was the opposite. Yes, there was, you know, very little noise, not no noise. Yes, it was really weird not having a clutch and not having any gears. You're constantly, your left hand is just flapping around in the wind trying to grab something. It's after the end of the first demo, I was absolutely sold, and I couldn't understand why this hadn't been taken up in any other, you know, in any a real positive way. And that's when I said, I thought, you know, I think we should be part of this. And we started up English Electric, and we started off with Zero, the Californian brand that I mentioned, and then we've kind of just built it up from there, broadened our portfolio and stable of bikes, it's kind of been a bit of a roller coaster ride since then. So I think what I've done is, did that change then? Can you see any image now?
Yeah.
Has anything happened?
Now, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So one of the things that we focused on very quickly, because I kind of treated everybody that was a potential customer of ours like myself, which was really ignorant and not open-minded at all, was that the thing that sold it to me was the actual ride. And so one thing I made a priority was that we had to focus on getting bums on seats. And so what we started off doing the first year is doing traveling demo days. This is one of the ones we did. It was rather wet that year, and this was more at a big show called Malay Mile, based around London. But we'd go all over the UK with demo days, taking all of our bikes and encouraging people to have a go, even dragging them on to have a go. It's such an amazing thing to do.
I am back on.
Oh, hello?
Yeah, it just kicked me off, mate.
Matthew.
Froze mid-mark Dickens.
But yeah, so it's basically what we are kind of our number one thing was to allow as many people to have a go, or have the opportunity to have a go, because there's plenty of people. I mean, motorcycles follow cars in general, irrelevant of electric or combustion, about 3 or 4 years behind. So you know, you've got to imagine we're sort of, you know, we're a little bit behind the curve with the electric side of things. And motorcycles, so plenty of people don't even know that there is an alternative to combustion bikes. And the fact is that, I'm out of time already. Oh wow! Okay.
Brutal.
We've all got questions.
You can carry on for another minute. I think we can lay for another minute.
Okay, right. I'm going to blitz through all the photos really quickly because I spent ages making this damn thing. Right? Right. So there's some scooters. That's what we do. That's like urban commuting. That's more 1 to 5 capacity bikes. So you can, like, anybody with a license prior 2001 car license can ride these bikes without any other licensing. Electric is slightly different in the licensing that is required to ride it, which makes it a far more appealing opportunity for a lot of people. So even this bike you can ride on a CVT, which is £80 to do half a day's worth of your time to do. You've got something like this. This is Zero, one of the Californian brands. That's a Type 2.
Oh, I like that one.
Yeah. So this thing will quite comfortably outpace most modern 1000cc sports bikes on the road. You know, this is the real deal. Again, that's in full fairing. Energica, Italian electric sports bike, and they do the Moto electric version of the Moto GP, the Moto E, which is a new thing. Off-road electric, huge opportunities there because of the lack of noise. You know, that makes a huge difference in terms of where people can go off-road, the tracks that are available. Again, Swedish brand, off-road. Children's off-road, getting children into off-road is amazing because lack of noise doesn't scare them, that sort of thing. And then utility vehicles. So this is for people that are in agriculture and events with transferable battery packs to ATVs and quads. And that's it. Bang. Done.
Well done.
Pretty good. Thank you, Alec. Can I ask that you stop sharing your screen now, Alec? Is that okay?
No,
Yeah, thank you.
There you go.
So sorry about Matt interrupting earlier. I did call him because I got a message saying he got kicked off Zoom. Actually, I got a couple of messages to say people had been kicked off Zoom. So I don't know if somebody's kicking people off. Matt, are you there? Are you still there? Can you come back on and start asking some of the questions that are in the Q&A?
I am here.
But before you do that, Matt, with your nice haircut, we'll go over to Sarah, because Sarah had her hand up patiently.
Oh, thank you. That was amazing, Alec. Well done for rattling through it so quickly.
Yeah, brilliant.
I'm really intrigued about the CVT thing, because obviously accessing electric vehicles can be a price point too far for many. I know the cost models say otherwise, but people's attitude seems to say no. So it's something like this could really open up urban mobility for a lot of people and also free up space on our streets. So just want to know, how much would a standard commuter with maybe a 60-mile range cost?
You're probably looking at a starting point of about maybe £3,000, something like that. But see, the thing is once you start wrapping it up in finance packages, I mean, you get costs down to, the cost of a mobile phone monthly, pretty much.
That's unbelievable. That is a game changer.
And you get all plug-in vehicle grants. It means that they have to, the plug-in vehicle grant for the bikes means that the manufacturers or the importers have to put a 3-year minimum 20,000 mile guarantee on the battery. So immediately that gives the buyer a lot more faith in, the longer term ownership of the bike, and the minimal servicing. The licensing side of things is interesting because electric is rated in a slightly different way on continuous power versus net power, or peak power, sorry. So what it means is that you can ride, for instance, one of those bikes I showed. I mean, that's comparable to actually riding more like a 600cc bike, although you can ride it on a CVT, which is £80 and half a day's worth of training. It opens up the market massively to a lot of people who would have not considered it in the first place.
Can you imagine a situation where you move into a block of flats and as part of your monthly rent you can access one of these bikes as a kind of mobility hub option? That would just be fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think for a lot of people, and one thing I did mention there was that a lot of our bikes have removable batteries. So, for the guys that have issues being able to have access to, charging points on the street or garages or whatever, they just swap the battery out, they take it inside, they charge it up.
Wow, that's good. Like that.
Really cool.
Alec, I don't wear the trousers in my house. My wife does. I need some inside info as to how I can convince her that what you do is utterly brilliant and I should have one. What do I say?
That's a tough one. It's always the two things that prevent people from buying in this order are kitchens and wives. They're the two things that in that order that we have that I've lost so many sales. I mean, to be fair, I mean, safety is a big issue with obviously people and their people's perception of riding on two wheels, whatever the case, if it's combustion or electric. And the fact of the matter is, it doesn't make you any safer riding electric to riding on combustion. It's irrelevant. What I think is changing is the areas in which you are riding, or certainly urban areas, are becoming, I think more. I think you're gonna see less and less cars in those areas, and I think cars are the biggest. Motorcycles on the road are not. It's not a dangerous thing. It's the cars alongside the motorcycles the issue, because 90% of the time when you see fatalities, it's because they hit a car or the cars hit them. It isn't because they've careered off the road themselves. So yeah, I mean, I haven't got an actual answer for that question.
I didn't think you would have.
Yeah.
Okay, last question from you, Paul, until we go to the mailroom.
Yeah, you mentioned something in there, and it was the sound, of course, of the vehicle being none. And obviously from a car point of view, from 2022, I think it's law that they will be able to have to make a noise. I'm thinking the urban operation is likely to be one of the key areas for some of your vehicles. Some of them will be the open road I can get and off-road. What sort of risk assessment, kind of understanding of the fact that these are silent, or normally we're used to hearing a bike from half a mile away. How do we get around that?
Yeah, so I mean, it's like bearing in mind the background that I came from. It was all the slogan on your T-shirt was "Loud pipe save lives." That was it. The louder you were, the more noticeable you were. So it's a thing that we get asked often, and I don't think there is an issue at higher speed, out and about. Normally, you hear these bikes. They make a noise, whether it's a belt or whether it's a chain or whatever. You hear them coming before you see them. I believe that. I know that. The issue is slow speed urban environment. That is the issue. And I do think that this, we're working with a firm at the moment to provide a lot of the bikes that currently don't have it. Like there's a fleet sale that we're dealing with, an emergency gas response unit, who insist on having this as an AVAS system, I think it's called, isn't it? But it's an audible noise it has to make. Okay. And I think, to be fair, maybe they should have something if they're particularly in an urban environment below a certain speed. Until people become more aware of the fact that they're not going to be able to hear it before they see it, then maybe that is necessary.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Over to you, Matt.
I will mute myself then. So a couple of questions in here. Alex, what sort of range are we talking for some of the larger bikes, like the big one with the nice red tanky shoulders?
The highest, the biggest range that we've got in terms of furthest range rather, is probably about 100 to 150 miles real world riding. That's on one of the bigger, the red ones, the Energicas that we've got. Which is reasonable. A lot of big higher end sports bikes, you're going to struggle to get 120 miles out of a tank. Obviously the issue being that you can fill up in 5 minutes, and that's the thing we always get told. The fact is that some of the charging on the bigger stuff is now DC, CCS charging. So on that bigger redder one, which can do 100 to 150 miles, you're looking at a charge time of about 40 minutes. So it's not quite like a car. The problem is with the motorcycles, you've got far less space to put stuff. So it's got to get smaller, or the battery density's got to get better, and everything's got to be a bit tighter to make it a viable thing for a motorcycle. But yeah, 100 and 150 miles, which is
cool. Next question out of the question box for you, Alex. Given electric bikes are allowed in cycle lanes, what is the legislation around electric motorcycles in cycle lanes?
Illegal as far as I'm aware.
Illegal as far as you're aware. It's tracked like a motorcycle still.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I mean, there's some grey areas again, which I think, to be honest with you, very quickly will become not so grey areas. But yeah, basically.
And a last question from me to Mr. Dickens: has it convinced you to look at an electric bike yet, Mark?
Sorry, Matt, I was on mute.
I said, has it convinced you to look at an electric bike yet?
Well, why not?
Mark's a big biker.
One of those big red ones.
We'll have to get him. Where are you based at, Alex? We'll make sure he comes down for a test drive.
That's the thing we do. This is where I could do my big push. We do doorstep demos. We bring the bike to you.
Oh, look at that, Mark. No excuse now.
Yeah,
no excuse.
We do that, and we do mobile servicing as well, which means anywhere in the country, we come to you. So works out all right.
I hope Michael Eaglen wants one.
Yeah. Subscription. I'll say subscription rises are enormous at the moment, and if you're doing it on bikes as well, gee whiz.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Johnny, that's everything out of the question room.
Okay.
I just wanted to kind of throw in the fact that I think that what a great example that Alec's setting there in terms of bums on seats.
Yeah.
I think one of the key things, the key drivers to get people to change to electric vehicles is to get them in or on the vehicles, because driving an electric vehicle is so much nicer, even if it's a van, than the ICE versions, the standard traditional combustion engines. So much smoother, so much easier to pull out on junctions, so many benefits, and I'm sure the fun factor for Alec and his bikes must be amazing. So I imagine bums on seats as a real clear mission to everybody. Let's get some vehicles out there, let's get people trying them.
Definitely.
Thanks, Paul. There are some other questions on the Q&A tab, so if any of the panelists or special guests want to have a look at those and answer through the chat box, then you can do. I'm going to share the results of the poll that I launched at a random time for us on the conference call webinar, as Mark was speaking.
I was just
so
trying to distract Mark.
That's it. I've got to say, hats off to Michael for still being on the call.
No.
Yeah, well done, Michael.
So as I mentioned at the beginning of the call, we are holding our first ever live stream from a venue, but where will it be? Lots of you said that it's going to be Renault UK head office and then Milton Keynes Experience Centre. It is in fact Milton Keynes Experience Centre, and that's going to be held on the 26th. They'll be closing it off for us for 2 hours, and we will be all together live streaming from there. So we'll be making a big song and dance about it throughout the month of August for that. Unfortunately, Matthew won't be with us as he will be on annual leave. But if we're lucky enough, he might
no commitment
on camera. Yeah. Apparently,
I'm going to try and come on from the airport.
Lightweight.
So that's that. So yeah, just keep an eye on the Q&A tab there, and if we can get Adam onto the EV Cafe group call, if there is any questions for him in particular, then
I will do. Yeah.
I just want to say, sorry.
Is Mark able to share his slides as well? Is that possible? They're good slides, really great.
Really great.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure he could share some of the information.
Yeah, you can have all of that. Johnny, you've got the PowerPoint.
Yeah, I can share it on your behalf. And you've got a video as well, so we can stick that on there. He's actually got a video of talking through his slides, which is actually really interesting and professionally shot. Not like me and you from our selfie stick. So,
I'm more interested in the slides, I think, Johnny.
I just want to say a big thank you for choosing us today, as I appreciate there was another webinar taking place. It still is taking place. So if you haven't had enough of us or enough of webinars today, then low CVP that is on. It's still on until 5 p.m. So if you still have time and want to, then jump on that if you wish. As I say, Milton Keynes is where the live stream is going to be held on the 26th. There is limited space for that, so must get registering. Before then, we are hoping to hold our next session still virtually on the 29th of July. I think that's the Wednesday. And the agenda is going to be focused around local authorities, some that have made big steps in the EV transition and public sector EV strategy. So make sure that the first thing that you do when you leave here is that you click on the link on any of our pages, any of our posts, and sign up to secure your spot on that as well. We do ask kindly that you please share this amongst your LinkedIn network. We like to get a bigger reach every week. I appreciate this one's been a bit difficult because of what else is going on. In the meantime, just a quick note to say if you've missed any of the previous sessions, then visit the YouTube channel. That's had something like 800 hours of YouTube video watched now, which is great. And you can see all the previous discussions. We're going to share some of the presentations as separate videos, so easy to navigate. You can also visit the EV Cafe group on LinkedIn. We're starting to get a good number of people on there now, all interacting, and where we'll be sharing all our slides, and we're open 24/7. So any questions that we might have missed today, we can answer there. Before we go, any last words to the panel? From the panel, the last thing actually, don't forget to check out the Nissan area. As I mentioned in the introduction today, it will give you an idea where the Alliance is going, where we are going as Renault, because of the shared platform, the shared Alliance platform it is using. And don't forget, if you see it on LinkedIn, go onto our Renault Pro Plus website, group page, or whatever you call it, and sign up so you get to get registered for the live premiere for the Renault Pro Plus. That's happening on the 11 a.m. this Friday on the new development on ELCVs. So that's enough from me. So last words from the rest of the panel.
Go on, Sarah.
Oh, yeah, John, Sarah.
Sarah was first.
And me.
But I've got so much I want to ask everyone. I'm going to be over already. I guess just to go to Mark, because we didn't do that many questions for you, but just such impressive numbers going on in Madrid and Paris. And which are the other cities coming up where we can look forward to this kind of innovation and all these tons of CO2 savings?
London, Birmingham, Manchester, Glasgow.
Great.
That'll do. That's great. Thank you very much. I did a quick calculation whilst you were talking, and it turns out that if we are going to go to New Zealand, which will cost approximately 6.7 tons of carbon for us each, then we can definitely afford to do that with all the savings you've made in those two cities alone. So I think that's absolutely fine. And the last thing I was going to say was just look at all this technology, look at everything we've been presenting today, and this is just 2 hours worth. And there's one brand who I just think is doing amazing things. That's Lightyear 1. Are you familiar with the Lightyear 1 solar concept car, which at the moment is in its final stages? It can do 700 kilometers in the Netherlands. This isn't even like the Sahara Desert sunshine, because it has an entirely solar panelled roof and a 30 kilowatt battery on board. So 700 kilometers on a solar powered car. I think that's the direction we need to be thinking about going in. They've proven it can be done for the cost of a Tesla Model X, which we know are very popular product. So I think if you find a technological thing that you like, get behind it, get sharing, promote it, support it, and see if you connect people to it. Connect, pun intended, connect people to it who can then help propel that product to our marketplace faster. That would be my plea for the week.
I was just going to try and play my buzzer. It's like, get off.
I so nearly swore at you then. I so nearly put my fingers towards the camera. And it didn't.
God, did she go on, eh? God.
Any other last words? Yes, John.
I love Mark. I think Mark's fabulous.
We've got another marriage proposal on the EV Cafe.
I mean, seriously, I think when car manufacturers say we do mobility, it's very often greenwash. It's a load of absolute garbage. And Paul was kind of alluding to this with his hybrids, mild hybrids and plug-ins. It should be full EV. What I think is interesting about Renault is that you're bothering to say, do you know what? We understand that this is about moving people and things about. This is not about selling boxes. This is about providing a service. And we are investing hugely in doing that. And I think that's to your credit, because there are many out there who don't do that. I'm gone.
Thanks, John.
So,
to you, Paul.
I just say, I wanted to say that we've had some real innovation on display today, and I love what is going on with the whole world of different electric mobility. You know, I'm passionate about seeing vans, and there are other van manufacturers out there that are doing wonderful things, but I know Renault are striving to bring stuff to market. I really hope that we will see a really credible range, large vans, some faster charging, and more urban mobility vehicles kind of getting out there and getting some bums on seats, really. So I just want to commend everybody that's played a part today. It's been fantastic. So from the back of my van, thank you very much and have a great week.
I think I'd just like to say, if I can, thanks to everybody on the panel, because every week we've been, well, every other week now, but we've been doing the EV Cafe, and it's really, really raising the topics to the fore that maybe people have been thinking about and not almost too frightened to discuss. But it's quite clear, I think, over the last kind of 20 weeks that EV, plug-in or hybrid or whatever clean air technology we want to look at, is wider than just cars and vans. You know, there's trains, planes, and all sorts in transport infrastructure. But it's really become the forefront topic. So thanks, guys, because you have invested time to be here, and I really, really appreciate that.
Thank you.
John.
We're all about the people that come here and visit us and give us their commitment and their time. And I've just noticed there's a guy called Dave Morgan who's posted in the Q&A box, in the chat box rather, who's unfortunately been a victim of our current times, and he's looking for a role as a regional sales manager. So if anybody has that kind of role, hook up with Dave Morgan, see what you can do. Because there's somebody who's reached out to us and shared something with us, given a bit of himself. If you've got that opportunity, do the right thing.
Thank you, John.
Scott Eady's just shared his link, Dave Morgan, in the chat. So please do go and look at it.
Brilliant.
Excellent. We're all here for each other, aren't we? That's the main thing. Sarah, did you have your hand up?
Oh,
did
no,
you say? You're all
just
done.
gesturing at John.
So is there anyone else who wants to say any last words before we say goodbye to everybody and Julian's mum?
Oh, of course, Alice.
Alice.
If you missed last episode, it was a joke from last episode as we had Julian's mum on the call.
Julian's just said there's something wrong with you people, as if he's only just noticed.
We love your mum, Julian.
Oh dear.
So, any last words from our special guests of today? Alec, Adam, you're back on, I've noticed, and Michael, you're still awake. How are you doing yet?
I'm just barely still awake, and hey, it was really, really nice to be part of the conversation today. And hats off to all of you guys and to Renault for the EV Cafe. I think you're doing a great thing here. It's really it's been a pleasure to talk to you, and I've tuned into a few of your episodes over the last couple of weeks since Sarah first introduced me, but I was doing it on YouTube because I didn't have to stay up all night.
Thanks, Michael. True commitment.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Michael. You're not going to pull an all-nighter then and jump on the other conference, other webinar?
No, I'm not going to do that. I'm actually going to go to clearing a little bit of email here and there, but it's time.
Thank you, Michael. Adam,
Adam. Yeah, thanks for inviting us onto the EV Cafe and us come and pitch something other than an automotive product.
Thank you very much, Adam. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Alec.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on here. I really enjoyed it and listening to everybody's the other guys on the panel, and I now have a PowerPoint presentation I can use.
Thanks for last minute.
Everyone's a winner.
Well done, Alec.
Well done, Alec.
So if you have been watching us today, or you're watching us later on YouTube, thank you.
Yeah. Cheers, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Cheers, everyone.
Fantastic. Bye.
See ya.
Great.